Sharada Sharadam Bhoja Vadana Vadanam Bhuje Sarvada Sarvadasmakam Sannidhim Sannidhi Kriyat. As many of you know, this is a very beautiful prayer for Devi Saraswati, and it is also our subject matter. So I chose this particular prayer because not only we are worshipping Devi Saraswati, from whose grace we are able to study, learn, think, understand, but it also reflects today's subject matter, which is Bhakti and Jnana Samanvaya. The word Sharada means Sharam Jnanam Dadati iti Sharada. So the etymology is Shara means Jnana, Sharam, that Jnanam, Dadati, one who, Da means Dadati, one who gives is Sharada. That is, whoever gives knowledge is Sharada. Then Sharadam Bhoja, this lotus feet of Saraswati. So in the lotus feet of Saraswati, and I say that I am actually bowing down, we are bringing Bhakti. By addressing the Devi as Sharada, we are talking about Jnana. When we are saying that I am bowing down to Sharada, we are bringing Bhakti. Then if you look at the next phrase, Vadanam Bhuje, the lotus face of Devi Saraswati, I am worshipping, so there is Bhakti. Vadana means mouth, tongue. So when we speak, when Saraswati comes out, Jnana comes out. So here we are saying, Hey Sharade, who gives all the Jnana, I bow down to you so that your lotus face bless me and make me speak Jnana, Vadanambuje. And then how Sarvada, that means this Jnana must be in me, Sarvada, all the time. And then I say, Sarvada Sannidhim. All the time you be in my presence, so I can worship you, so there is Bhakti. So you can see the genius of the poet of this prayer, Sharada, Sharadam Bhoja, Vadana, Vadanambuje, Sarvada, Sarvada, Asmakam, and I want it. That is why I am asking, please grant me both Jnana as well as Bhakti in you. So with this preamble, we will look around our society. It's my personal experience, and I'm sure many of you also have heard this. There are people who come and say that I am very spiritual, and then I have no interest in bhakti. I'm a very intellectual person. I want to think, I want to read, I want to understand. I don't need any devotion to anything. So there are people who talk like that, because they claim that bhakti and devotion to Ishvara is a mere superstition. Then we also meet people who say, I have very great devotion in God. I'm not interested in all these Shastras and Veda and Purana, Mahabharata, Ramayana. I don't need all those things. I will just sit in front of my favorite deity and then I will worship. My bhakti is enough. So we get these two diametrically different kind of viewpoints on both jnana as well as bhakti. So let's take the life of one who exemplifies a total commitment only to pursuit of knowledge, who had nothing to do with the devotion. And this gentleman was an extraordinary scholar in Vyakarana, in Sanskrit grammar. So he had the great pride that he could defeat anyone when it comes to arguing about word, shabda, and its meaning, artha, and context in which it should be used, he was very proud of. And then he used to deliberately go travel from place to place. And then he would challenge other grammarians to talk to him, and then he would defeat them, and then he would actually take all kinds of decorations and walk away. Once, what happened, he met a teacher, and that teacher was absolutely not interested in arguing anything. But he just said, you just worship Bhagavan Krishna. Some transformation happened to him. And from that day onwards, he stopped all argumentation and he started writing, because of his scholarship, extraordinary poetry and songs on Bhagavan Sri Krishna. And this, many of you might have guessed, is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was a very, very extraordinary devotee. And we also have another great example in Kulashekara Muni, is also known as Kulashekara Alvar. And Kulashekara Alvar also was an outstanding scholar. But then once he got the great bhakti for Sri Krishna, for Mukunda, then he completely gave up all argumentation. And then one of the beautiful prayers he says in the Mukundamala Stotra is, I am not going to worship you so that I can be free from going to the hell. Naham vande. I'm not praying to you for the sake of going to heaven. I will not pray to you for the sake of removing me from the possibility of going to hell. I am not asking you for any empirical knowledge of the world or anything. All I want is, in every time I take birth, I want to be in bhakti for you. And remember that Kulashekara Muni was an extraordinary scholar, a great jnani, and then he brings jnana and bhakti perfectly together in his magnum opus Mukundamala. So, but what is the relationship between bhakti and jnana? How are they so integrally intertwined? One without the other is incomplete. Pursuit of just jnana, only knowledge without bhakti, what happens is it results in arrogance. The person becomes arrogant about his knowledge. Besides, if he takes to a spiritual journey, it becomes extremely tedious. It is as though a person wants to cross a river and there is a boat waiting for him to be taken across the river. But he is so proud of his physical power, he says, no, I don't care about this boat, I am going to swim. And then look, he has to swim against the current, against possible crocodiles and everything. But that is what happens if there is only jnana and it has no bhakti at all. And suppose there was no jnana and there is only devotion, or there is only bhakti, then what happens? Bhakti becomes shaky. We expect by our bhakti in Ishvara, Ishvara will take away all my problems. He will take away all my worries. He will take away all my sorrows. That will be the expectation of a bhakta who does not have the jnana about the nature of Ishvara, the jnana about the nature of Jagat, and jnana about the nature of himself. Ishvara, Jiva, Jagat, whoever has no jnana, for him what happens? And he says, I only have a bhakti for my chosen deity, my Ishta Devata. Then for him, he will think that Ishvara takes away all his difficulties. And this will not happen. It is because if you see, Bhagavan Sri Krishna himself says in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 5, verse number 15, Nadatte kasyachit papam nachaiva sukritam vibhuhu. Vibhuhu, the Lord, na kasyachit papam adatte. He will not take away from anybody the sins that person has committed. Na chaiva sukritam, nor all the merit that he has done. So neither God takes away our merit, nor God takes away our demerits. Then how can a person be liberated? Krishna goes on. Ajnanena avritam jnanam tena muhyanti jantavaha. The person's mind is actually covered by ignorance. And by means of jnana, by means of knowledge, a person will be free from all bondage. Nadatte kasyachit papam nachaiva sukritam vibhuhu ajnanena avritam jnanam tena muhyanti chintavaha is the answer that Shastra gives to a person who says, it is enough for me to be a bhakta, I need not know anything. Then, this verse establishes the irreplaceable position of jnana. Then we also see Krishna telling in the 18th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, 62, verse number 62, we are told, Tameva sharanam gaccha, go and surrender to Ishvara. Sarva bhavena bharata, O Arjuna, in all circumstances, tam eva sharanam gaccha, go and surrender, do sharanagati to Ishvara. Tat prasadat param shantim. It is by his blessing that a person will get param shantim sthanam. The highest peace is God. And it, what kind of peace? Prapsyasi shashvatam. That which is actually will remain forever. So, Bhakti Jnana Samanvaya, the synthesis, the subject matter we are talking about, is established in the Bhagavad Gita in these two complementary verses. In the first verse, he says, without Jnana, you cannot get rid of bondage. In the second, 18th chapter verse, he says, it is only when you surrender to Ishvara, because of his prasada, by his grace, then only you will get shanti. These have to be studied together and not in isolation. It's only when we understand these two, seek refuge in Ishvara, totally surrender the body, mind and the soul, but with full knowledge of Ishvara, with full knowledge of the Jagat, with full knowledge of the self. When that happens, grace also comes automatically. Because a learned devotee is a favorite of God. In fact, Krishna himself says, Jnani bhaktaha same priyaha. A bhakta who is also a very learned person is really and truly my beloved. There is a very beautiful story which actually originated in about the 1st century before the Christ in Greece. And it has been actually taken by all other cultures and all traditions. So there were two friends, two very good friends. And then they had to go to a neighboring town. But the unfortunate situation was one of them was blind and the other was lame. So the blind man can walk, but he cannot see, therefore he cannot go anywhere. Then there was a lame person who could see, but he could not walk, and so he could not go anywhere. So the parable says that the lame person sat on the back of the blind person, and then the blind man carried the lame man on his back, lending him his feet and borrowing from him his eyes. This is exactly the relationship between Bhakti and Jnana. So Bhakti alone is like the blind man who can walk, because Bhakti is the one that gives momentum to our spiritual growth. It is only Bhakti that actually initiates even the interest in learning the scripture, in interest in learning the Shastra, in interest in knowing who I am, in interest in knowing who Ishvara is. And therefore, it is the one which moves us. Bhakti moves both literally, taking our mind to knowledge, and also figuratively, actually, emotions are also brought out by expression of bhakti. But then, by itself, bhakti cannot go anywhere. But when it is the jnana, the problem with jnana is it cannot actually have an emotion. Suppose you say, you are Parabrahman, you are Brahman. Then what happens? You just sit, that's it. And then you also say, you don't have to do anything. Then all that you take vairagya. And then in vairagya, you need bhakti. So you start doing bhakti, but there will be no movement. For example, by merely chanting continuously, Aham Brahmasmi, Aham Brahmasmi, Aham Brahmasmi, how can I become Brahman? So therefore, let us now start from even the very beginning. Let's go back and then let us say, I am neither a bhakta nor a jnani. I don't have either of them. So my question is, what triggers my interest in spirituality? Because in earlier iterations, there was bhakti, so somebody comes and says, you have to actually get some jnana. Okay, I got into jnana, and conversely, I was only studying Shastra without having any devotion to God, and then came across a guru who says you also have to have Sharanagati, and at that point of time, I started knowing both. But now, look at my plight. I am neither a bhakta nor a jnani. So what happens to me? How can I ever step into the waters of spirituality? How can I cross this ocean of difficulty? Here, the Mundaka Upanishad comes to our help. There is a mantra in the Mundaka Upanishad which says, Parikshalokan karmachitan brahmano nirvedamayat nasti akrita kritena. So we live for a few decades. And having lived those few decades, we have acquired a lot of experience of life. Triumphs, successes, disappointments, frustrations. All of those things we have experienced. And an intelligent person who has experienced all of these difficulties of life, challenges of life, and pleasures and joys of life, he will actually say, whatever I have done and whatever I have not done has not helped in my experience of good and bad. Lot of times with very good intentions we do things, but it turns out to be bad. Sometimes we do it half-heartedly, but there will be a grand success. How is it? How is this possible? So I start thinking by examining the world. So what would you tell me who says, I'm neither a bhakta nor a jnani, and you want to inspire me to take into the path of spirituality? To me, Mundaka Upanishad gives an instruction. Why don't you examine the world? Why don't you examine the world in relationship to whatever you have been doing, in relationship to the karma? Then you will discover that ultimately you have gained nothing by either doing or not doing. All the time, just like in the Alice in Wonderland, Louis Carroll writes, we are running and running and running to be in the same place. And once that realization comes, which means please review your own lives unemotionally, and then look back and see, what have I achieved all these years? Only ayasaha. I have only got exhausted. That is all. And when that realization comes, for those fortunate people who can think, and for those fortunate persons who seek to understand, why is it even after my doing all these things, I am not able to get that peace of mind I am in search of. I am not able to get that tranquility that is there. And what should I do? Should I study Shastra? Should I do Bhakti? Should I go to a guru? With so much of confusion, the person will be roaming about aimlessly. I'm sure many of you have come across such people who are in that state of need, saying that, what can I do? What can I do? Where can I go? Who can help? For those people who think that they are absolutely helpless, then like magic, a guru appears. Kaivartaka Keshavaha, that boatsman will come. You remember that we talked about this person who wanted to swim, even though the boatsman was sitting there with the boat ready to take you across the river. Now, after Pariksha Lokan Karmachitan, having examined, he now realizes, oh my God, the boat and the boatsman ready to take me across this confusion is sitting right here. And that is how you will discover the Guru right there and just in time when you need him. Now you sit in the boat. Now you observe the boatsman. He has to get out of the shore. When he has to get out of the shore, what does he do? He uses only one of the two oars. He uses only one of the paddle and takes that paddle and then pushes in such a way that the boat turns from being parallel to the coast, it will get into the water. But then as soon as the boat has got into the water, you must use both the oars which are on either side of the boat to move forward. So what is the metaphor here? The metaphor is you used either Jnana or Bhakti to get out into the water, to get out of the banks into the water. And once you are in the water, to enter into spirituality, you start either with the Jnana or with Bhakti. And once you have entered into the waters of spirituality, you need both of the oars to move about. And therefore, Bhakti Jnana Samanvaya has to happen. And many of you who might know Kannada, in the Purandaradasa has given us an extraordinarily beautiful kirtana. Ambiga na ninna nambide, Jagadambaramana ninna nambide. Oh boatsman, I trust you. I developed the trust in you. Then he says, what is one oar? Satyavembude huttu ambiga, one oar is truth. Sada bhakti embude pathavambika, the second oar and the path is bhakti. Nitya murti purandara vithala, O Purandara Vithala, my God, about whom I have all the knowledge, Mukti Mantapake Vayo Ambiga, take me to the destination of liberation. So, a rowboat, that is why, has two paddles and both are needed to cross the water. Then, this means we are tethered to the world. And therefore, first we have got to untether the boat. And untethering the boat That metaphor is called in Shastra Uparati. So Uparati means the very first step is we have to carve out some time in every day for contemplation. We feel that if I sit in meditation, if I sit in dhyana, if I sit in japa, it's a waste of time. Because for half an hour I am sitting and doing dhyana, I am doing japa, I am not productive. So the person has got in his heart an anxiety that he must always be doing something. And that anxiety has got to be calmed down. We must learn to sit quietly, doing nothing. And that is called as Uparati. And that is the time for contemplation. That is the time for untethering ourselves from empty chores that we pursue all the time in our life. So therefore we have got to redesign our life. So what can we do? One of the simple things is just take a small project. In fact, in Orlando, we have introduced a project for our children. And that project is you learn 5 shlokas from the Bhagavad Gita, 10 shlokas from the Bhagavad Gita. So many families are sitting up in the morning at the breakfast table and they sit and learn those 5 or 10 shlokas. Very important. Learn a couple of shlokas, couple of prayers, couple of mantras. For what purpose? Shastra asks, why should I worship God? It gives us answer. Nishkaranam yajeta. You have got to worship for no reason. We are always asking for reason. Why should I do? Why should I do? In Uparati, in withdrawing from the hustle and bustle of our life, we have to take to prayer for no reason. No agenda, no request, no sankalpa. That is Bhakti Jnana Samanvaya. Let us see how this journey started for the economic man. As I mentioned to you, I am neither a bhakta nor a jnani. And the classic example is Arjuna in the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna does not demand Arjuna of bhakti at all to begin with. You please read the whole of the first chapter and the second chapter. There is no mention about devotion. Because he knew that Arjuna was an economic man. All his life, Arjuna has spent in acquisition of power, skills, and resources. So much so, he got even the name Dhananjaya, one who actually acquires a lot of wealth. And he is also Partha. Partha means son of Prutha. Prutha means earth. He is an earthly person. We sometimes, I have heard, and you have heard many people say, I am a very practical person. That means he is a very earthy person. He has not awakened the emotional part of his life at all. Arjuna is like that. Arjuna is earthbound. And then he has no wings to soar, which is required to reach the that brightness of jnana. We call it as jnana deepti. So somebody has to wake us up, whip us up to action. And you will see Krishna leverages the familiarity of friendship. This is what a guru does. He leverages the familiarity of friendship and says, don't be a coward. Klaibyam masmagata partha. Their friendship was so deep, so loving that no offense was taken. And now Arjuna says, oh, my dear friend, you say that I am weak. Okay. And you tell me I am a coward. Tell me what should I do? And that's the opening. That's the opening for the economic man to introduce spirituality in his life. For a jnani to harmonize it with bhakti. Then Krishna says, it is not what you should do, It is what you should know. That is what I am saying. It is not what you should do, my dear Arjuna. It is what you should know. And then, what should you know? What should you know is, first and foremost, you have to know how to speak. So it is introduced. Give up the arrogance of knowledge. Give up the arrogance of bhakti also. And then what happens? That speech will be, as another great Kannada saint says, Basavanna says, Nudidare muttina haradantirabeko. A person who has harmonized bhakti and jnana, when he speaks, the ideas and the sentences flow in such a way, it is a necklace made of gems. Nudidare manikyada diptiyantirabeko. One who is got bhakti and jnana, when he speaks, it is like the luster of a shining gem. Nudidare linga mechi ahudennabeko. That means if one speaks, God should be nodding and says, yes, 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 yes. And that electrifying teaching happened for Arjuna when the qualities of a sthita prajna was imparted. A sthita prajna is one who does everything without doing anything. That state was given and it was imparted in so few words. And then Arjuna started seeing his dear friend with whom he took all the liberties. And later on he says, how much I have misunderstood you. I took you for granted. We take Ishvara for granted. Sakheti matva prasabham yaduktam. He Krishna, he Yadava, he Sakheti. I used very language which is used only in street language I have used. Tat kshamaye tvam aham aprameyam. True transformation of bhakti has happened on meeting a guru of this caliber. Which means that when we receive jnana, then we become conscious of our bhakti. Until Sri Krishna gave jnana to Arjuna, what was Krishna to Arjuna? Sakheti, you are a friend. And I called you, hey Krishna, hey Yadava. Even by his, he calls him by his lineage. You are, hey Yadava, hey friend. But having received the knowledge, that familiarity converted itself into a devotion. So that devotion, that means we become conscious of bhakti only in the knowledge, not only in the knowledge, but also in Guru. Then what happens? The simultaneous awareness of Guru and Bhakti and Jnana, combination of Guru, Bhakti and Jnana, the three of them in Sanskrit, it is called Samjnana. So a person gets Samjnana, and at once the Jnana that is taught gets encapsulated in the Bhakti for the Guru, for Ishvara manifesting as Guru. And that Guru becomes an avatara. And this harmonization of Bhakti and Jnana, that means the Samanvaya, occurs. So the following steps in the journey will be propelled, ensuing steps will be propelled jointly by Bhakti and at the same time the unfolding of knowledge. Together it happens. Just as you use both the paddles to row the boat forward, the expression of bhakti will be still a reference as the student grapples with the teaching. And then he finds logical fallacies in the teaching. And because of the bhakti, he will not go and discuss with the teacher. And therefore he is still in that process. And then he starts sometimes doubting even the teacher. Now the teacher says, I have taught this in the beginning of time to Vivaswan. Imam Vivasvate Yogam Proktavan Ahamavyam. He says, I have told this. The Guru comes and says, I have given this knowledge from time immemorial. Then the doubt comes for Arjuna. Aparam bhavato janma. You are born now. You are just 6 months old, 7 months older than me. And then why Vivaswan was born eons ago? How should I know that you actually told? You are confusing me. This is what happens when suddenly jnana comes to us, we get confused. There will be an overload on the brain. So he says, you are giving me confusing messages. Vyamishrenaiva vakyena buddhim mohayasi peme. So in this stage, what has happened, bhakti and jnana have come together, but some jnana has not happened. So the teacher continues and clarifies. And he converts this samjnana into vijnana. Vijnana means understanding, cognition, and the bond between the knowing one, janat, that is the buddhi, and the recognizing one, the abhinjanat, they get established. So conversation with the Guru has to continue in the momentum of the bhakti for Guru and Shastra until such time the jnana given becomes vijnana. And at that point of time, what happens is the bhakti, jnana, harmony will still be transactional. Because what is a transaction? That which ends. So once the jnana is obtained, the person will go back and ask, now why should I need bhakti? That's why there is a saying in Sanskrit, upadhyayascha vaidyascha karyante aprayojakaha. As soon as I have learned something from the teacher, as soon as I have gone to my physician and he has fixed my health problem, I have no need for either. That kind of idea will come, and this is what I mean by transactional relationship of bhakti, jnana and guru. And therefore what the guru does is to make this firm. Remember, then it was uparati, quietening the mind. Now you have gone through these processes, it has to become upasana. The difference between uparati and upasana is, in uparati you make space in the mind and your calendar for contemplation. In upasana, what we do is we establish ourselves in jnana. And for this establishing in the jnana, what we have to do is we have got to see the entire universe, the entire creation in one unit of knowledge given to us. So Krishna uses a beautiful statement, ekatvena pruthakstvena bahuda vishwato mukham. You have to realize ekatvena, the only reality is Paramatma, is Ishvara. Meditate on that constantly. Pruthakstvena, I am seeing this one in myriad forms. You can see it in many, many forms. And Bahudha, the entire universe, is also has to be seen as Ishvara, and this is called Vishwarupa Upasana. This new flavor, a new flavor of the combination of bhakti and jnana now happens. So the bhakti for knowledge now grows. Simultaneously, the bhakti for guru also grows. And this extends itself into the creation. We get bhakti in the entire creation itself. Then we get the bhakti in the Ishvara who created everything. At that point of time, what does the teacher teach the student? Now he says, Maya tatamidam sarvam jagad avyakta murtina machthani sarva bhutani nachaham teshvavastitaha. In the 9th chapter, 4th verse, Krishna now takes the bhakti jnani bhakta into another state and says, all this world is pervaded by me, by Ishvara, who is the unmanifest being. All objects subsist in me, but I do not subsist in them. Now, get that recognizing faculty. The recognizing faculty of the one in many and the many in one. And this in Sanskrit is called Abhijanat. Abhijanat. And when this Abhijanat has happened, the person will be able to, in the words of a beautiful 18th century, a wonderful 18th century poet, William Blake, he says, to see a world in a grain of sand and heaven in a wild flower, hold infinity in the palm of your hand and eternity in an hour. Just 4 lines. You see how Bhakti Jnana Samanvaya has happened in this mystic poet. Can you see the entire universe in one grain of sand? Ekatvena. And heaven in a wild flower. Pratatvena. Hold infinity in the palm of your hand and eternity in 1 hour. This is Abhijanat. This is the recognizer who now uses all the resources available to him. He uses his body, his speech, his mind, his intellect, his senses, and his very self in singing the glory of Jnana and the repository of this Jnana who is Ishvara. Nama, Rupa, Kriya, Kalapa, Viramam, Anupama, Divya, Tejo, Muratim. This is what you will discover in even the most mundane and the most ordinary things. And such a person who has reached that Bhakti Jnana Samanvaya, that synthesis, Kathopanishad says, Sa Kashtha, Sa Paragatihi. In him there is culmination. In him the highest goal of the journey has been reached. Jnana and Bhakti become one. Jnanameva Bhaktihi, Bhaktireva Jnanam. There is no difference between Bhakti and in Jnana, just like milk and sugar, when combined, become indistinguishably one. So wherever there is Jnana, Bhakti, Samanvaya, whoever adores Jnana and Bhakti, Kathopanishad says, Tesham Sukham Shashvatam Netaresham. Only those people actually enjoy the highest joy, eternal joy, and not others. Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita at the end represents Jnana. Arjuna represents Bhakti. When they are together, there reigns good fortune, victory, prosperity, and appropriate conduct. As Sanjaya says, Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna, Yatra Partho Dhanurdhara, Tatra Shrihi Vijayaha Bhutihi Dhruvanetihi Matirmama, and thus declares Sanjaya. So you see how even an absolutely economic man in the hands of an extraordinary teacher can get transformed. If you meet Hanuman in the Kishkinda Kanda, Hanuman was a monkey, a little extraordinary monkey, little powerful and extraordinary monkey, an intelligent monkey. That is about it. But as soon as he met Sri Ramachandra, in fact, Shastra says the moment of Hanuman meeting Ramachandra is called Garbha Sandhi. The term Garbha Sandhi means a providential occurrence. Meeting of Hanuman and Sri Rama is a providential occurrence. And in that providential occurrence happens in our lives all the time. Only difference is our mind is not ripe to discover that this moment is that providential moment. But for Hanuman, he was able to discover right away, and he discovered his Aradhya Deva, and then he immediately, his restless mind became calm. The monkey mind became calm. And therefore, what happened for him was a transformation happened. So the biggest barrier for bhakti, ahankara, was completely gone. And why was that? How could that happen? It happened because he had already practiced a two-pronged practice called abhyasa and vairagya. He had accepted the situation. Hanuman had accepted the situation of their being banished, and then he was constantly practicing, and then which tells us that abhyasa and vairagya is the way to break this confusion about jnana and bhakti. And how can we get this abhyasa and vairagya? Patanjali Maharshi says in Yoga Sutra, chapter 1, sutra number 32, tat pratichedartham ekatattva abhyasa, for the sake of controlling our wandering mind which can neither settle in jnana nor in bhakti, nor in the world, because we are not even happy with the world. Nowhere we are settled. If in that unsettled condition, Patanjali Maharshi in Yoga Sutra gives a beautiful solution: worship the one, have one, and then we have to develop 6 important qualities so that all this gets cemented. Shastra says, utsahat, nishchayat, dhairyat, tattat karma pradarsanat, sangatyagat, satam vrittehe, shadbhihi bhakti prasidhyati, shadbhihi jnanam prasidhyati. The first and foremost is we have to have a great enthusiasm. Without utsaha, without enthusiasm, we can neither be worshipful nor can we be successful in learning. In both of them, there must be extraordinary enthusiasm till the last breath is there. And there must be a determination, a firmness, nishchayat, and there must be a courage. Let's be courageous to say, I am a student of Bhagavad Gita. Why should we be apologetic about it? So, dhairyat, and discharging our duties appropriately, in appropriate time, to the appropriate quality and quantity, tattat karma pradarsanat. And we have got to get away, sangatyagat, from people who actually discourage us. Sangatyagat. And satam vrittehe, never should we give up noble act, noble behavior, noble act, good conduct with these 6 bhaktihi prasidhyati. Then how can we get this? How can we find this one entity in which I have got to focus? Sriman Madhvacharya gives a beautiful tip as to how we can do. Mahatmya jnana purvastu sudridha sarvatodikaha snehaha bhaktiriti proktaha daya muktihi nachanyatha. Know the greatness and the grandeur of Ishvara through the world that he has presented to us. And then be very firm in the consciousness, in the awareness of the glory of Ishvara, then develop loving relationship with him, sneha bhakti prokta, then automatically a person gets liberation. So this brings us a good question that many have asked me: how do I choose a favorite deity? How do I choose an Ishta Devata? Our family worships Shiva, but my heart goes for only Krishna. So many such emotional conflicts could be there. For that, knowing the extraordinary quality of a particular Devata helps. We see this in the meditation of the rishis. How the rishis sit and meditate. हिरण्यगर्भः समवर्तताग्रे भूतस्य जातः पतिरेक आसीत् सदाधार पृथिवीन्द्यामुते मां kasmai devaya havisha videma. They just sat and said, to whom shall we offer our worship? And when that offering of the worship that came, the rishis said, our very existence depends on all the elements that make up the world. We must be created in the first place. What a great grace that is there, that I am even born. I got an opportunity to be born. And that opportunity is given by that Devata and that Devata Mahatma, and in that Devata, let me have a devotion. So, one choice, one Eko Devaha, Keshavova Shivova. Choose one Deva, one Devata, whether it is Shiva, Narayana, Rama, Krishna, whoever, Devi, choose one. And then with that, in that one, see everything. And this we will see in the Rudradhyaya, as we say. And now circling back to how Hanuman was able to do that, when he was asked by Rama himself, who are you? Then he says, are you talking about my body? Then I am your servant. Deha buddhyatu dasoham. Are you talking about my jiva? Then I am an amsha of yours. Are you talking about my soul, atma? Atma buddhyat tvamevaham iti me nishchita matihi. So therefore, look at the Ishta Devata as Bhoktaram Yajna Tapasam, one who receives all my meditation and all my worship, and who is also Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, who is the Lord of all the creation. Not only that, he is a friend of every being. Surat Sarva Bhutanam. So one who understands Ishvara in this way, that means what is his jnana? The jnana about Ishvara is, he is the one to whom all my worship goes. Bhoktaram yajna tapasam. Ishvara is the one who is the Lord of all the worlds, all the creation, Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. Not only that, he is the friend and beloved of everybody. One who knows this is a true bhakta. One who knows this also gets manaprasada, a total tranquility of mind. And thus, it is only when there is harmony between jnana and bhakti, a perfect understanding of what is jnana and a perfect practice of bhakti based on jnana, using both the oars in the raging river of samsara, and then going with determination, with enthusiasm, utsahat, with determination that I will reach the other shore, nishchayat, and the courage to fight the currents of samsara, dhairyat, and then not listening to anybody who pulls me down, sangatyagat, and never giving up upright character and behavior and morals. Then such a person is both a bhakta and a jnani. And that should be our ideal. And that is the Acharya Darshana. That is why Srimad Ramanuja called it as Shemushi Bhakti Rupa. Only when bhakti is laced with jnana, then only the person can realize that Mahavishnu. Thank you very much. Hari Om. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Thank you very much. And